Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to episode 97 of the Falcoholic Live. I'm your host, Kevin Knight, on Twitter, at Falcoholic Kevin, joined by two illustrious co-hosts this evening. First off, Mr. Adnan Ikic, at Say Which Way on Twitter, and Mr. Evan Birchfield, at Evan Birchfield. So before we kick things off, got to check in with those guys. First off, Adnan, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing very well tonight. I think, have we been on since the Saints were knocked out?
No, this is your time. Yeah.
Okay, so all right, for the next 40 minutes, I'm hijacking the show.
Here's my monologue about it.
To talk about how terrible the New Orleans Saints are. I'm sure our viewers wouldn't mind. I'm doing very well tonight.
Perfect. We'll get to that. Don't worry, guys. We're going to have a full section of the show dedicated to dunking on the Saints. So if you're here for that, it'll be soon. Also with us tonight, Evan Birchfield. You know him by the very easy to follow at Evan Birchfield on Twitter. Evan, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. The Falcons are obviously no longer in the playoffs, but, knowing the Saints and Patriots are also not in the playoffs, it's like we can enjoy it a little bit more.
Yes, I'm free to enjoy the playoffs with no stress. My son Lamar got knocked out, so I'm sad about that, but it's we got some interesting playoff scenarios coming up. It's going to be fun. I think any of the matchups could be fun, and we will hopefully get a good championship weekend and a good Super Bowl weekend when it's all said and done. Making fun of can't guard Mike. Don't worry, we're going to get there, Solaire. We're going to get there. So, thanks to all you guys for tuning in. Devin Siege, Tyler Raines, Vlad, Solaire, all the usuals, all the good guys. We appreciate you guys tuning in now that we're in the off season. We got plenty of content for you. Tonight's going to be more free agency focused. We will obviously get to some draft takes because I don't think we could go through a whole show without a draft take. I think that's pretty much impossible. So I'll give you guys a little preview of my mock draft that's coming out tomorrow, Thursday, as well. So we will get to that. But first, let's go ahead and start dunking on the Saints. So Adnan, I know you were itching to get going there, so I will let you take the first crack at it.
Oh, okay. So where do we begin? First ever 13-3 team to get knocked out of the wild card round is a good place to start.
Mm-hmm.
And I've tweeted about it before, but the Atlanta Falcons had a lot to do with the fact that the Saints were even playing on wild card weekend, because had they not lost to us in New Orleans, they would have not only had a bye week, they would have had complete home field advantage throughout the playoffs. So in that first round, in that divisional round, they would have likely faced the Seattle Seahawks, who are a banged-up team. And I think there was a pretty good chance that in New Orleans they would have bypassed the Seahawks, who, like I said, they're missing both of their running backs. Marshawn Lynch is playing. And they'd probably be playing at home this weekend. So, it's a good feeling knowing that we had something to do with it. Michael Thomas in his last two playoff games has gone for 106 yards, 11 catches combined, knocked out in both of them, and he's had more salty tweets fired off than he has had yards in those two playoff games. So it's serendipitous. I think it's schadenfreude, where I'm just living and basking in the failures of my enemies, because the Atlanta Falcons have given me nothing to be happy about over these past 2 years. So I have lived for the New Orleans Saints' epic playoff collapses year after year after year. It's become my favorite yearly tradition.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's the one thing that keeps me going in the dark of the night. The fact that we can count on the New Orleans Saints just blowing it every time they get to the playoffs. As perennial playoff chokers ourselves, we're eminently qualified to be able to dunk on everyone else that does it. So, great job, New Orleans. You're raising the bar for first round exits. Congratulations to them for setting that illustrious record of, the first round exit for a 13-3 team. Mike Thomas is out there threatening to beat up reporters, so everything seems to be going well there.
Yeah, and you know it was coming too. There was no doubt in my mind that they would have had another playoff heartbreak this year. I had no doubt that they were not going to make the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah.
No doubt. It's It's just become ingrained in their culture to choke in the playoffs.
I mean, if anything, it would have been last year that they made it, because last year they were a lot better as a team than they were this year. I thought this year they were, good but not great. I mean, I feel that way about a lot of teams this year. But yeah,
The New Orleans Saints could have legitimately won the last 2 Super Bowls. Not this year, but the past 2 years.
Probably, yeah.
Last year, I think they beat the Patriots in that Super Bowl if that no call doesn't happen.
Right.
And imagine them winning that Super Bowl in Atlanta. And then 2 years ago, if not for the Minneapolis Miracle, they would have likely beaten the Foles Eagles.
Yeah, probably.
And then they would have faced the Patriots in the Super Bowl again. And, it's just a wonderful thing that deep down inside, them and their fan base are just thinking and stewing it over.
Yep.
Thinking about how they should have had at least 2 more Super Bowls. And Drew Brees should be going to retirement with 3 Super Bowls. But instead he has that one bounty ring, which pretty much has an asterisk by it. And he has 1 All-Pro and 0 MVPs, and they're still complaining about how he's not one of the NFL All 100 players, as if he deserves to be.
Yeah.
Dude, someone said he's the Frank Gore of quarterbacks, and I think that's a great comparison.
That's great. It's a lot of volume. I mean, a lot of his 5,000-yard seasons. I mean, that was insane passing volume. So that should be looked at. But hey, Matt Ryan has more MVPs than Drew Brees. So just gonna throw that out there, folks.
In far fewer seasons.
Yes, far fewer seasons. Evan, what are your takeaways from that massive choke job by the New Orleans Saints?
Yeah, I mean, I'll not put it perfectly. I do think it was funny how it took them a week. Once the Vikings lost, it's very interesting talking shit when to the team that beat you after they go on to eventually lose. It was just weird to see how Michael Thomas was, flipping out on Twitter and trying to troll the team that defeated him. You normally don't do that, but I don't know. It was just, if you haven't seen it, go, and you don't have a Twitter, borrow somebody's account or something. But you look, he had a meltdown on Twitter. It was just weird. I don't know how else to explain it. It's like somebody getting knocked out, and then they see the bully get knocked out, but then they trash the bully for. I don't know.
It's I knew you sucked this whole time. It's like, okay, why'd you get your ass kicked then?
It's Choppa style that and stuff, and it's like, I don't know. I'm so glad that Julio Jones.
Yes.
I know we sit here and we always, talk about how amazing he is, but probably the most when he's all said and done, he's like a Larry Fitzgerald, where they're good. Good people, obviously, but just the way he conducts himself, he has the most diva-like talent. He could be like a Deion Sanders if he wanted to, and just kind of, showboat and, brag and whatever. But he's so quiet. There's probably so many fans who don't even know what Julio sounds like. And it's not to say he can't be vocal and stuff, but he just chooses not to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you have to appreciate it. He's not on Twitter making fun of these other teams or whatever, especially teams that defeated us. Could you imagine us talking crap to the Patriots after they beat us in the Super Bowl?
Can you imagine
it doesn't
Julio
make
Jones
sense.
after last year's Super Bowl? He just goes on a Twitter tirade about how much they suck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. And, he could do all this stuff, but he chooses not to. I mean, you even see perfectly on the literally the same exact day that Michael Thomas does that later on. It was when Julio was ambushed by TMZ, trying to bait him into being yeah, the Falcons should draft Tua. But he didn't fall for it.
No.
He's like, oh, we have Matt Ryan. We have a franchise quarterback in Matt Ryan. Let the, GMs do whatever. But, he didn't throw anybody on the bus.
No.
And speaking, I want to segue. Speaking of throwing people under the bus, do you guys see Drew Brees throwing one of his receivers, who many are speculating is Ted Ginn, under the bus on his fumble against the Vikings? He said in that interview afterwards that the wide receiver ran the wrong route or something like that. And it's easy to it's easy to go back and cross-reference on all 22 film who it is. A lot of people are saying it's Ginn. It's probably not Michael Thomas because he only runs 2 routes.
Yeah, it would be hard for him to run the wrong one.
Yeah, it's hard for him to run a slant the wrong way. He does that he runs that route 100,000 times a season.
Mm-hmm.
But
and just to give you a layup real quick, the tweet that comes to mind most for me, and I think of you instantly for some reason, is the one where Michael Thomas is talking about garbage time stats. The floor is yours.
Even though Michael Thomas himself against the Falcons on that final drive, they did everything in their power to try and get Michael Thomas a touchdown. I think he racked up 60 yards of garbage time yards on that very drive. And by the way, the Saints not getting 10 points broke their streak of getting at least double-digit points at home, which they were 1 away from the Colts for the all-time record for.
Yep.
So that was another fun little stat I had fun with the next day.
Another fun stat, what was that Kirk Cousins has now thrown more touchdowns in the Superdome than Drew Brees or something?
Yeah, in the playoffs.
In the playoffs.
And also, just circling back to that Drew Brees throwing his teammates under the bus, that's not a leader, at all. I know he's, very vocal in, the pregame huddle and stuff, but that's not leadership. Can you imagine? Matt Ryan has had so many opportunities in his career to justifiably throw someone under the bus, whether it be his offensive linemen, whether it be his offensive coordinators. But even in the worst times, Matt Ryan has always just kept it professional to the media. I'm not saying he hasn't called people out in the locker room in person where that should be done. Teammates should hold teammates accountable, but not to the media. And I mean, Matt Ryan has just been the best teammate that you could ask for, and you can see how much Julio Jones respects him, how much his teammates respect him. Drew Brees isn't half the leader that Matt Ryan is. Yeah,
I agree. And I think I know there's a lot of fans that have issues with Matt Ryan. If you listen to this show, you know that we're very pro Matt Ryan. And look, I think the problem with people is that the grass always is greener, right? That's one of the cardinal sins of personnel evaluation, is that you think that you can get a better XYZ just by going into the draft, and it's a fallacy to think that you can really find a meaningful upgrade over Matt Ryan. Sure, you could get really, really lucky. You could find Patrick Mahomes. You could find, Lamar Jackson at the end of the first round, that sort of thing. Those things do happen occasionally, but they don't happen at any rate that I would say would be worth squandering a first-round pick that could really help your roster overall versus trying to upgrade from Matt Ryan, who on his worst day is a 10 to 15 quarterback, and on his best days can easily be a top 5 or better quarterback. I mean, that finding a meaningful upgrade over him, it's really, really difficult. And you look at teams like the Browns, who went through 12 quarterbacks before they finally got Baker Mayfield, and now even he's questionable after a kind of mediocre second season. You can't just flip a switch and say we're getting a new quarterback, he's going to be an MVP. That's what Matt Ryan has done. So you're going to ride it out with Matt Ryan and just be happy that he's not Andy Dalton, because Andy Dalton is legitimately towing the line of can we upgrade or not every single season. Or Matt Ryan, I mean, I just think that you have to be satisfied with Matt Ryan because he's the best this franchise has ever seen, ever. He might be the best we ever see, period, for the Falcons. So, just trying to jettison him for the chance that you could find a Patrick Mahomes or a Lamar Jackson I think that's a questionable decision. So, you guys can process that. But
it's a waste of time arguing with Matt Ryan haters.
It's true.
They never really give an actual coherent reason as to why we should make the change.
Yeah.
They always say, he blew a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl. I mean,
no, that was Kyle Shanahan's fault.
And Devontae Freeman's fault for missing a block, but I'm going to keep them accountable for that as well.
Right,
and
right.
Jake Matthews' fault for having that holding in field goal range, and the defense's fault for giving up 34 points.
Yeah. They did play over 100 plays, so I the latter part of those I kind of don't blame them for.
It's because they couldn't get off the field.
Yeah, exactly. It's true. It's true. But yeah. I digress. We could go on about that game into the dark hours of the night.
Yeah. All right, let's do it.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Forget the whole episode. Here we go.
Yeah,
We're rehashing the
this
Super Bowl right now.
Episode is now going to be 28-3.
Yep. Here we go. No.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Matt Ryan, I just want to say, had the 4th highest Super Bowl rating in history and the highest passer rating for a losing quarterback by far. Yeah. In Super Bowl history.
Right. So that's it for the Super Bowl talk. You guys don't have to run away. It's over now.
It's coming back over the offseason.
Oh yeah, no.
Run out of things.
But we'll give you warning. Like we will label it in the episode title if it's going to be.
No, we won't.
No, it's just we're just going to spring it on you like right in the middle of the episode. Yeah, you'll have no warning whatsoever. But
maybe we'll just in the middle of the episode. We'll cut us off and show highlights of the Super Bowl.
Oh God, yeah, no, I would just go limp. Yeah, that's not something I can handle. But yeah, thank you Saints for once again squandering your opportunity. It gives us life. It gives us hope for the future. And it gives us ammunition. I just love the Saints fans that think that they can come back and be like, oh well, you're not even in the playoffs. Like, I don't give a shit.
Neither are they. We won the same amount of playoff games as the Saints.
I mean, we've known we aren't going to be in the playoffs for 8 weeks. Like, it's not a surprise to me that we're not in the playoffs. So don't.
Yeah, we're literally the reason they're still not in the playoffs.
Exactly. So, so that's a nice thing that happened. We also have a couple of little news hits to get to. I know the big buzz is that the Falcons are going to be getting new uniforms in April. Apparently, we don't know anything about what the uniforms might look like. Everyone knows I'm team black primary. What are your guys' thoughts on the uniform announcement? Do you think they're going to be totally different? Do you think they're going to be basically the same, maybe some different colors? Evan, I'll let you take the first crack at that one.
Yeah, I actually did a article for the Falcoholic. If you just typed in the Falcoholic uniforms probably into Google, it would come up. And I just did a brief history of all the uniforms they've done. And, that's tough because it's my main thing is I just want to be more traditional. In my opinion, the best uniforms in the league are teams like the Packers, the Cowboys, the Raiders. I mean, you could throw the Bills in there because they went more. They had an atrocious uniform, but they went more throwback, like a modern throwback, really. I love the simplicity of these uniforms, like 49ers. I just think they're clean, and it's not always great to have all these weird piping. The thing that makes me nervous is Nike's involved, and Nike can be completely hit or miss because you could end up with a Bills traditional, like I just mentioned. Or you could end up with whatever the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have. Yeah. And honestly, I would hate being a Bucs fan solely for how awful their uniforms are. I'm not big on the piping on the shoulders and then the alarm clock numbers and the big ass logo that is just, I don't know. But yeah, so if I had to pick, I mean, I like the black throwbacks we've been wearing. I think if you slap the modern logo on it and maybe clean up a couple things, you could add, I don't know, a logo on the pants or something like that. I think you've got a good look. I think the away uniforms would look really good with black and all white with some black and red stripes. But that may be too throwback. We might be too far away from something like that. But I know some people are big on going back to red helmets, which, I'm on board with. I'd be fine with either way, but I think it would look weird with the new logo. That's my only concern. Yeah. It looked good with the old, just black with some white. Logo, but now, I mean, the newer modern logo we have is, wider. I think it might look weird on a red helmet unless it's done correctly. But I mean, I'm excited, but also very, very terrified. Just like I said, because of the whole Nike situation. But if you read the letter from what Mr. Blank said, it basically said that they've been working apparently on it for 2 years, which good for them on how they kept that a secret for so long. Right. Because there was no leaks at all, at least from what I've seen. And I'm a big like uniform junkie.
Yeah.
The one thing I actually put on Twitter today was on top of the letter, and maybe I didn't see anybody else mentioning it, and I just happened to notice it. The font was slightly different, so it does appear they're making. I don't know if they're going to tweak the current logo, or maybe just leave it alone. I think it's a really good logo, to be honest.
I think it's good. Yeah.
The font changed, so like I guess the end zone font and whatever else they use it for. If you go to Edinburgh Field on Twitter, it should be like one of the top posts. I think it's a cleaner look. They basically just everything was more scattered, and they kind of condensed it, and the letters look a little more bold. But I mean, I'm excited. They had to do something, because if I know you said we're done talking about the Super Bowl thing, but those jerseys are always going to be attached to 2016 tremendous season, but how it ended. I think each uniform kind of has that identity with it, where we look at the black and silver like we had in the 90s, and some people think of Dion, some people think of obviously the Super Bowl we lost in those two.
Right.
But it'll be interesting. They needed a new identity, and what they do with it, I mean, we have till April to kind of guess, and that's a long time, but there could be some leaks well before then, so we'll see. I know some of the newer teams, at least over the recent years, they kind of gave like teasers where they'd like show like a portion of the uniform or something, so we might get something like that.
Yeah, probably. They're going to want to keep the hype, going. They're not going to wait fully till April
definitely.
to like deal out little teasers. But I mean, if they're listening to the fans, there seems like a very overwhelming want for a black primary jersey. Now that might not be like they only do black tops. Obviously they'll have an away color, and like I think they just need to add black to like the rotation at the very least. Like we need to have a black. Maybe a red is fine. I know there's been some speculation that they might try to go for like a silver, which maybe could be interesting. I don't know. There aren't a lot of teams that use silver or gray and that sort of thing. So that could be somewhat interesting. That would be a totally like new direction they'd be taking it.
Do you think they might try and bring gold back?
God, I hope not.
Obviously, Blank owns the Atlanta United. I wonder if he try and keep them similar color schemes, because they use more of that gold with the red and black.
No, the Saints do too much gold.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to go for gold. Gold doesn't really go with red and black super well. I mean, I like the Atlanta United logo. I think they do a good job mixing all that together, but he's probably going to want like some demarcation between the two. Like the red and black already overlaps. I feel like that's probably enough for that. But yeah, I mean, I think we could definitely see more silver worked in or something like that. But yeah, as long as it's not like super over the top ridiculous, I think we're going to be okay. And I just hope that they do some more black primary stuff, because there's so many teams that wear red. There's really only a handful now that really wear black a lot of the time. I mean, obviously the Saints being one, the Raiders being another. But black is something that is used a lot less frequently, so I think that could be smart. But yeah, I hope they don't change the logo. I think the logo's fine. But yeah, I mean, I think we've all expected that this was coming when they announced the new stadium. Like, new stadium makes sense. They would probably want a new uniform look at some point too. I guess I was expecting it maybe a little closer to when the stadium opened, but they've been supposedly working on it for 2 years, which would line up almost exactly like when they opened the stadium. So I'm interested to see how it goes. Adnan, you got any takes on the potential new jerseys?
I'll be super disappointed if we don't get red helmets. I love those red helmets. They are so clean and they go so well. I'm on the same boat as black primaries, and maybe the way they wear those throwback black jerseys now. They've worn the throwback black jerseys for the last couple of years for 2 games each season. I think we may go black primaries, red helmets. Well, that's how I prefer it, at least. Everyone has their own opinion on it. And then maybe the throwback jerseys that they wear, maybe they'll put it into the rotation. Those old throwbacks from the 70s and 80s, those old red throwbacks, which are also very clean jerseys, and they go very well with those red helmets. that'll be a really nice look to see. I think in terms of away jerseys, they'll stick with white, but they may put a little bit of black in there. I don't think we'll have the exact same like white jerseys that we have now, but yeah, most teams have white away jerseys. That's a fine away primary color, but yeah, just keep it short and simple. Black tops, red helmets are a must for me, and that this has the potential to really make some people happy. But like Evan said, it also has the potential to completely blow up in your face. And if it does blow up in your face, you're kind of screwed because you're stuck with those unis for at least probably the next decade, if we're being honest. But like those jerseys will symbolize the Atlanta Falcons in the 2020s. And hopefully there's going to be some success, maybe a Super Bowl that are remembered with those unis. But this is going to be your look for the next decade, hit or miss.
Yeah. So just hope, just don't go too overboard. And I think from what Arthur Blank has done, he doesn't strike me as the type that's going to go super flashy. That's never really been his style. So I'm not too concerned that it's going to be super over the top ridiculous or anything like that. But we'll see, because Nike's involved and they don't always make the best fashion decisions to be playing there. But yeah, it'll be exciting. It's an interesting thing for the offseason. Everybody loves uniform talk, so I'm excited to see what they end up looking like when it's all said and done. And we'd be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about the Panthers news. The two things were obviously that Luke Kuechly is going to retire, which is a big loss for the Panthers. I mean, he's like the glue of their defense. Only 28 years old. Speculation obviously being that his concussion issues over the past several years have kind of prompted him to walk away from the game. Either of you guys have any takeaways from the Kuechly news?
I'm happy for him personally that he made this decision, because I was really worried about Luke Kuechly, just from a human perspective. I think he's had 3 concussions in his career. We all remember that famous one on Thursday Night Football where he literally started sobbing on the field after a concussion, and I don't think he was doing that on purpose. That is one of the concussion symptoms where you have no idea where you're at, and you just become overcome by emotion just out of sheer confusion. And Kuechly, he's someone I was looking at for the past couple years as someone who maybe could have was going to hang it up early, and he was someone I was hoping would go into an earlier retirement just for his sheer health, because we've seen everything that's happened with CTE studies, and that's some scary stuff that comes along later on in life, especially if you have that history of concussions. As far as on the field, it's a devastating blow to the Panthers, because I think Luke Kuechly has been the best inside linebacker in the NFL for the past 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
He's been the glue of that Panthers defense. He makes all of the right reads. It's been frustrating playing against him as a Falcons fan, because he's just such a good player. And I know a lot of us look back and clown him for that Julio Jones catch in 2015, which was just an incredible play by Julio. But how many middle linebackers are 70 yards down the field making that coverage, making that read and covering the best wide receiver in the NFL like that? And it was some solid coverage.
It wasn't bad. I mean, that was great coverage for a linebacker. I mean,
but Julio just made an amazing play. But Luke Kuechly, one of the best players in the NFL. I loved watching him, not as an enemy, but just as a sheer football fan. It was so fun watching him go to work, because he was the best at his craft. And, the NFL it's a loss for the NFL, but, the NFL will barrel through this just like they did with Andrew Luck. They'll be fine.
Yeah.
But personally, I'm happy for Luke Kuechly on a personal level that he's stepping away and that he's not at risk for another concussion or for more head injuries.
Yeah. Yep. So, Evan, anything you want to add there on Kuechly?
Yeah, he just had nothing more to prove anyways. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure he wanted more than anything to get a Super Bowl ring, as all players do, but like he's already going to be a Hall of Famer. I think that's not even a question. As Adnan said, he's been one of the best, if not the best, inside linebacker for as long as I remember. You like to see them get out while they can, because some of them get injured and it takes effect of their life, and hopefully that's not the case with him. But he's one of those guys. It's those moments where you respect the players too much, where you put your rivalries aside, and I think you saw that on social media, where the Falcons main account was posting something about Luke, and it had like a picture of him and Matt Ryan. It's like you respect them because they're great. Like, sure, you love to cheer against them. Like, everybody was hooting and hollering when Julio caught that ball over him. But at the end of the day, it was because it was Luke Kuechly. If it was any other linebacker, like, it would have been amazing still, but it wouldn't have got us, as amped up, where it's like that's their best player on defense. Even though it was a mismatch, obviously, but I hope someday when Julio retires, he gets the same treatment where, we have, like, maybe not from the Saints, but I'm sure the Panthers will say something nice, and maybe the Bucks. But you just got to put rivalry aside. He was a phenomenal player, one of the better ones in the NFL, especially in such a offensive NFL we have now, where defensive guys don't get a whole lot of love. But yeah, it sucks to see him go, but I think it's a better choice for him, because I don't think if he was trying to like stick around just for a Super Bowl ring, I mean, I don't see the Panthers getting there anytime soon, so he doesn't need to risk getting whatever other concussions he could have gotten. But yeah, sucks to see him go. Makes the sport worse, as Anon said, and good luck to him in whatever. It sounded in his video like he didn't want to stay away from football, so maybe he'll be in coaching or who knows what. But it obviously was not for a lack of the love of football. He saw that he couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, and I'm glad. I think he made the right decision. I mean, he'd had a lot of concussions. He'd missed extended time with that. I think it was just the right decision for him and his family, and that's what he said. So sad to see him go, because he's one of the great players of this era of NFL football. But hopefully he's been able to get out in time, and he'll have his health, and he'll get to enjoy his millions for the rest of his life. And like you guys said, there's really nothing else for him to prove. I mean, he's 6-time All-Pro or something like that. Like, it's nothing else for him to do except win a Super Bowl. And no offense, but the Panthers don't appear to be in Super Bowl contention in the next couple of years, more than likely. So, I think he saw the writing on the wall and was like, if I'm going to go, I should go now. Because it appears in the next kind of segue into the next point, that the Panthers are probably going to be starting a rebuild here. Because the speculation we were hearing today, and we've been hearing a little bit of this for a while, is that Cam Newton may be likely to be traded. So they may be trying to get some sort of draft compensation for Newton here, which could make them players for a rookie quarterback, or they could be basically trying to do what the Dolphins did and pull a quote-unquote tank for Lawrence situation. Clemson quarterback Trevor Lawrence, who's going to be a very hyped prospect in 2021. They could be interested in getting in on the sweepstakes there. So they also did announce the hire of Joe Brady as their offensive coordinator. That's big news. I think he was one of the hottest names in college football this year. But I guess to you guys, do you think there's any truth to the Cam traded rumors, or do you think that that's a bunch of baloney, or what do you think about this Panthers team? Are they going to be tanking in the next couple of years? I guess whoever wants to go first is fine, I guess.
I'll just add. You got a new offensive coordinator, a new head coach. Cam Newton was already questionable, even if Ron Rivera was going to be there. So, yeah, I think there is some truth to it. It's probably more of who wants him and, what his value is. It's not like he's been lighting the NFL up for, a couple years anyway. So, yeah, there's probably some truth to it. I don't know what quarterback they would be looking for in the draft, because obviously Tua will probably end up in Miami and then Joe Burrow at Cincinnati. So maybe like Herbert or whatever from Oregon.
Jordan Love.
What pick did they have?
They're just before us, I believe. So.
Oh, okay.
Like 14,
so there might be.
Yeah.
There's probably going to be one or two, maybe. So.
Yeah.
I mean, that's that's a tough one.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting there. Anand, you have any takes on the Panthers?
The Panthers are actually picking seventh.
Seventh, that's right. I knew they were ahead of us somewhere.
Yeah, they finished 5-11. I really like the Joe Brady hire. That's someone who I would have probably, had I known he was like on the market after the year he just had, that's someone I would have been completely happy with the Falcons taking a shot at. A 30-year-old young innovative offensive coordinator who just set the world on fire, the college football world on fire at LSU, with Joe Burrow, someone who studied under Sean Payton and the Saints. And as smug and as much as I hate Sean Payton, he is a heck of an offensive football mind. Instead, we're going to be rolling with Dirk Cutter, who's going to run Devontae Freeman up the middle on every single first down in 2020 again. But, yeah, that's a really good hire, and I have no doubt in my mind that they'll call Cincinnati to maybe try and position themselves into a trade up for Joe Burrow just because of the history that Brady has with him. But they won't succeed because the people of Cincinnati will absolutely riot.
That would be the most Cincinnati thing ever, though, to have the number one pick and like a transcendent quarterback and then just trade
out of
trade
Ohio.
it away.
Who's from Ohio too? Like they would riot in the streets if they like traded Joe Burrow away, and I wouldn't blame him at all. I think that whenever a new head coach comes in, he always wants to pick out his own quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think that there's a likelier chance of Cam Newton not being the long-term quarterback than there would have been had Ron Rivera stayed as the head coach. Because, Ron Rivera's there, Cam's his guy. But now with Matt Rule there as the new head coach, maybe Rule wants to pick out his own quarterback. And that's something that's fair. Every head coach wants to pick his own quarterback. I know we made a lot of... There was a lot made out of the Matt Rule hire, but I think it's one of the most overrated hires I've seen.
Yeah.
Like everyone was talking about this guy like he's Kyle Shanahan or something. Like at Baylor, he was 19-20 in 3 seasons.
Right. Yeah.
And I know he had a solid year last year in the Big 12, where Baylor was maybe arguably a win away from the college football playoff, which they didn't get. But I don't really get the hype around Matt Rule as a head coach. Like, okay, it's solid hire, but people were clamoring for him, and he got a 6-year contract from Tepper, who was making this huge splash. And I mean, sure, he won the press conference. It was exciting in the press conference, but so was Rex Ryan when he got hired by the Buffalo Bills. So I don't know. We'll see how it works out. But let's just say that I'm not really scared of the Panthers in the near future.
No, I mean with that, like losing Kuechly is huge. He was really the glue of that defense. They may lose James Bradbury at corner too in free agency. There's a lot of holes they need to fill, and if they're shipping out Cam, it means that they're basically saying like, okay, we're not trying to win in 2020. So we'll see what happens there. Evan, did you have anything you wanted to add about the Panthers situation right now?
No, I mean, they're a rival, so it's kind of like you like seeing them be in misery here, because it seems like by the time they get a quarterback who's going to be comfortable and able to win them a Super Bowl, McCaffrey's probably going to be up there in age. Because right now he's like in his prime. Like, I mean, at least, maybe there's like 1 or 2 running backs up there with him at the top. He's literally their offense. So if they had like a Joe Burrow somehow, that would be a crazy good offense. But, I could also see them just being like, well, we're going to stick with Cam. And as you mentioned, tank for Lawrence next year, or maybe hopefully for them, they try and get in a position to trade up for him next year. But I don't see them being able to trade enough to get Joe Burrow. I think he's really hyped up right now. It seems like a lock of a pick, barring anything weird at the combine or something. But yeah, you know, I hate the Luke Kuechly news for them, but also they are our rival. So if they, let them deal with having quarterback problems, while we're perfectly fine with franchise quarterback Matt Ryan.
Yep, exactly. So
we're the only team in the division with like a stable quarterback situation. Because,
yeah.
We don't know if Drew Brees is going to be back or not, and if he is, he can't throw further than 7 yards.
Well, we saw
down the
he
field.
wasn't their best quarterback. Like the evidence was in that game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they literally brought in Taysom Hill to make that 50-yard pass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, Drew Brees is also another guy I'm not really scared of. I'm more afraid of Sean Payton's offensive system than I am Brees himself.
Yeah.
Because he's over the hill. And the Saints may lose Teddy Bridgewater this offseason. He's a free agent. He went, I think, 4-5-0 last year. It was mostly game-managed wins, but it's still, all it takes is one team, and NFL teams will always throw money at quarterbacks. Desperate teams will always throw money at quarterbacks who hit the market. We saw it with Nick Foles and the Jaguars. Someone's going to throw some good money at Teddy Bridgewater this offseason.
Yeah.
And they could potentially pry Bridgewater, because who's to say that if Brees comes back that Bridgewater's fine waiting another year?
Right. Yeah. No, Bridgewater's going to get money somewhere else, I think. So, I mean, someone else.
Plus, he's got Taysom Hill mixed into it too, so he's all of a sudden not the,
unquestioned. Yeah.
Brees moves on, so now it's kind of like,
why
even risk it when there's teams like the Chargers who may pay for him?
Yeah.
I mean, the Dolphins.
Someone will. Someone will, almost certainly.
Yeah. And he's like from down there, I believe. So, that might be a good situation for him. That was a team I think he was considering signing with, but then ended up going back to New Orleans. So.
Yeah, the Dolphins wanted him last year. Yeah, it was between the Dolphins and Saints last year. He's a free agent this year, and I think he only made, what was it, $7.5 million this year. Well, he didn't make that much, or it's a lot of money compared to like a regular person, but it's not like a lot in terms of quarterback money.
Right.
Someone will open up the checkbook and give him $15-20+ million a year.
At least like a Jacoby Brissett type deal.
Yeah, the Saints cannot afford that. They can't afford to give him that much money. And I think the Saints, even if Drew Brees retires, they're still on the hook for like $15 million for Drew Brees and dead cap, because they've kicked that can down the road so far that now they're going to have to pay for it.
Yeah, either they're going to pay for it or he's going to retire. So one or the other.
Yeah, I think even if he retires, they're on the hook for some money. I'm not.
Yeah, unless they make him. They're on the hook for signing bonus, whatever the signing bonus was still. But, I don't know. They do some crazy stuff with their cap. So whatever it is, I'm sure they're going to lose money on the deal. But, it's bad. It's a bad situation there. Because if they keep Brees without extending him, his cap hits ridiculously high, like in the 30s. I believe.
Plus, they had what was it, Will Greer, whatever his name is? Who some of them thought was going to be the next guy, and then obviously what's his face, who was starting for him, and we just every time he played us, we were just beating him. Blanking on his name. What's his name? The guy that was playing for him this year.
Oh yeah.
For the Saints. Or for the Panthers?
For the Panthers.
Oh, Kyle Allen.
Yeah.
Kyle Allen, yeah. I mean, in some games he looked okay, but they ended up benching him, and then Will Greer or whatever came in, and he definitely wasn't the part. So
no, he definitely wasn't better. So.
Yeah.
And Brees this year is on the hook for $21.3 million of a cap hit. I don't know what would happen if he retired. I think they will owe him some money. Yeah,
it's his contract's in a really weird spot right now, and he's on the books like next year too without actually having any like salary. It's just like his bonus like goes into next year. Like it's weird. It's a weird situation that they have with his cap. So, yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what they do.
And his roster bonus becomes guaranteed in March this year.
Yeah, so that'll be very interesting. But we promised we'd talk about the Atlanta Falcons on this show, and we will deliver on that promise. Falcons free agency, as you guys knew, prior to the season, they were in a bit of a pickle in terms of their cap space. Like they were, kind of brushed up against it. They did some restructures. Now they're positive again. They did all their futures contracts and all this. So the Falcons are now up to like 50 players under contract. And they have about 6.7 or so million in space, just free right now going into free agency before they try to do any sort of cuts. So one of the things we're going to talk about tonight is like how much they could reasonably free up going into free agency to sign guys like Austin Hooper. They have other free agents like Tyler Davison and stuff like that. So we'll go through a little exercise here. I've got Over the Cap open, and I'll get your guys' input as well, obviously. And if you guys have any specific questions, you can throw those in the chat, and I'll try to get to those too. But to kick things off, there's a couple.
Matt Ryan.
Yeah, cut Matt Ryan.
Matt Ryan.
Eat that $44 million in dead cap right now. So Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Jake Matthews, Grady Jarrett, those types of guys are all, you can't cut them. So don't even try. But
no, I still think back to that one comment on our Facebook Live show where someone's like, "Oh, the Falcons just shouldn't pay Matt Ryan $30 million this year. Just give him $10 million."
Yeah, just tell him to deal with it. Yeah. Tell him to deal.
Contracts work. Oh my God, Matt Ryan would have his lawyers in Philaury Branch quicker than Devontae Freeman can miss a block in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. All right, so they've got $6.7 million now. That's probably about enough for their draft class only. So that's not really going to buy them a whole lot in free agency because they need to reserve that probably for their draft class. So now keep in mind, like they could spend that money in free agency and then cut players to free up additional room after the draft because you don't actually have to have the money to pay the players that you draft until like you actually physically sign them, which sometimes that can last into like June, when you start OTAs. So it's interesting, but you can kind of game it a little bit. So let's talk about some of the most obvious players that people might be targeting to free up cap space. So people talk about Desmond Trufant a lot. Let me just nip that in the bud right now. Yes, you can save $5 million by cutting Desmond Trufant, but the other side of the coin is that you're paying him $10 million in dead cap. So you're losing $10 million just to save $5 million. So you're actually paying then you don't have Desmond Trufant, who is, whatever you think about him, he's like at least a solid starter on your defense. So
yeah, Trufant also, I don't think we'll feasibly think about parting with Trufant until 2022 because even next year it's like $6 million in dead cap.
Yeah,
to cut him, and he's a good player. Like Desmond Trufant, he's like become sort of a whipping boy, but he's a solid cornerback. He is a solid starting cornerback in the NFL. You're not paying him $10 million to not play for you.
Yeah, exactly. So that's not something that's financially realistic. So another guy that's out there would be Alex Mack. I don't believe the team is really interested in parting with him in terms of cut. He could be traded potentially for a pick if, say, for instance, the Falcons want to go after someone like Tyler Biadasz from Wisconsin with that top pick. That is absolutely something that's on the table. Picking 16th, I mean, that is something that's right about where he's going to start going in mocks. So if they're confident that they're going to get Biadasz and that's who they want in the draft, I wouldn't be shocked if we see them move Alex Mack. They can save $8 million in cap by trading or cutting Mack. So that's a significant savings. If they have a young guy they like, that could be an option. I still don't think that's going to happen, but it's a possibility.
And at the same time, with the Biadasz scenario, one, you never know if he'll actually be there
Yeah.
at 16, and free agency happens before the draft. And two, you could potentially still keep Mac and look at Biadasz as an heir apparent center to him and start him possibly at guard this year.
Yeah.
And then pass the baton over at center to him. I discussed this in our center review article that'll be coming out on the website on Friday. But yeah, I think Alex Mack isn't going anywhere one way or another. And he is a very, very solid center. He graded out as the 8th best center, according to PFF's grading this past year. He's still someone who this team is trying to win now. Going from Alex Mack to a rookie starting center wouldn't help that endeavor.
Yeah. No, and I agree with that. Like, I don't think it's particularly likely, and I think, if anything, they'll let Matt kind of play it out this year and then move on next year, giving Biadasz a year to kind of acclimate, if that's where they go. I think it's pretty likely that maybe they keep Mac and go after, like, a day 2 center as well. I think that's totally on the board as an option. But if they really desperately needed the money, that's $8 million you can free up. But I don't think they're in that desperate of a situation that they need to cut Mac at this point, because as we're going to get to, there are other players where you can save money. So one of the obvious ones would be Devontae Freeman. You do eat $6 million in dead cap, but you save $3.5 million, which is not ideal, obviously. But if Freeman's really not in their plans, and maybe with Dirk Cutter's offense, it really doesn't matter who you have at running back because they're going to suck in his system. You decide to either trade him or kind of move on from that contract and just kind of eat the money. But that could potentially save $3.5 million. Kyle Allen's another guy. I don't think they're going to cut, but they could save about $3 million and eat $4.2 million in dead cap from him.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah.
I'm just to be honest, I'm not a big cap guy. I'm just looking at this. So if they cut Keanu Neal, it would, not that they would or I want them to, but it would save them. They would get almost $6.5 million in cap space.
Yep, because it's his 5th-year option, which is not guaranteed until the first day of the league year. So it would be the exact same thing as Vic Beasley last year. If they cut him before the year starts, you get all the money back. If you don't cut him before the year starts, it's fully guaranteed, so you can't get it back.
Except the difference is, like you said, they're holding on to Keanu Neal most likely. And it was completely logical for them to cut Vic Beasley and save that $13 million last year.
Right.
Except they didn't do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think with Neal's salary at $6.5 million, I mean, that's like a starting safety. That's like starting strong safety money for a good safety.
I mean, as long as he's back to full health.
Yeah.
I don't think we've heard anything, but if there's like something with his injury and stuff.
No, I mean, if they're concerned at all, they'll probably try to cut and re-sign him. That's totally an option.
Yeah.
But, it's just not as big of a risk, like, with him, because that's half of Beasley's cap. So
that's kind of interesting because it's like we have 3 great safeties, I think we can say. So it's like, Neal's been out for basically 2 years.
Yeah.
It seems like, and there's no dead money from what I'm looking at.
Exactly. So
not that I'm saying cut him or anything. I love Keanu Neal.
But that is an option. Absolutely.
And that's another lesson in you should almost always take on accept the 5th-year option for a player, because there's really no risk, because you can cut him, move on from him before the season starts or before the league year, that off season, and there would be $0 in dead cap. So don't be surprised when the Falcons do accept Takk McKinley's 5th-year option, which I think is going to be for, I don't know, around like $10 million, maybe a little more. Don't panic thinking, oh, Takk McKinley only had like this many sacks, they're giving him this much money. They're not giving him that much money officially.
Right.
That $10 or so million is fully unguaranteed, and the Falcons, if Takk McKinley doesn't have a good year, can easily move on from him with no financial ramifications.
Yep, that's good to know as well. It's another nice thing about the 5th-year option. Now we're getting to like the obvious cuts. So Alan Bailey, you save $4.5 million with only $1.5 million of dead cap. Alan Bailey was fine. I didn't have a problem with him. He was fine. But that amount of savings, you just take it. You can't really say no to that. Ty Sombrero, you save $3.75 million. He's bad. He should have never gotten that contract in the first place. That's another easy cut. James Carpenter, you can't really cut. You only save $83,000 by cutting James Carpenter, and you eat.
God, what were they thinking
$5
with
million.
that contract?
It was extremely dumb. So you can cut him next year and save basically his entire cap hit, but not this year. So sorry. Luke Stalker, you save $2.6 million with less than $1 million in dead cap.
Dirk Cutter's never letting.
Oh, he would never let him leave.
You can forget about Luke Stalker.
Well, he's an easy cut in my book.
Stalker.
Yeah, and then the last guy that really gives you significant savings is Matt Schaub. You save $2 million, and with barely any dead money for Matt Schaub. So let's just do.
And also another terrible contract. We're not cutting Jamon Brown.
You can't. No.
$8 million in dead cap. So
Yes.
The Falcons were hard at work making franchise crippling contracts last offseason.
They were absolutely. Yeah, you actually eat. Let's see, $1.5 million, just straight up. You lose from your cap if you cut Jamon Brown. So that's not happening. So let's just say they do the obvious ones, in my opinion. Alan Bailey, Ty Sombrero, Luke Stalker, Matt Schaub. If they cut those 4 players and no one else, that will put them at about $20 million in cap space. So not like a haul, but enough to make a few moves to like extend Hooper probably and maybe sign a couple of like mid-level guys. That could be like guys like Tyler Davison, whoever. So with, let's say, I think these are those 4 I think are the moves that they're going to make at minimum, and that'll get them up to about $20 million cap space. So looking at the guys that are gonna be free agents this year, Vic Beasley, I think we can all agree we're gonna move on from, right?
Well,
yeah.
Dan Quinn can fix him.
No. We're all comfortable moving on from Beasley, right?
Although there's a better shot that he stays since Quinn's back.
Well, then we know Quinn's getting fired next year at least. So yeah. He's guaranteeing that because Beasley's getting at least $10 million a year, like at least someone's paying him $10 million a year. So
people, I have seen some debate that people are actually debating keeping Beasley or Hooper, which it's not much of a debate.
No,
yeah,
it's pretty obvious.
I think shouldn't be much of a debate.
Yeah.
You
I
keep
don't
Hooper.
understand the whole, unless Hooper's getting paid like some absurd amount of money, why you would finally like get rid of Matt Ryan's reliable tight end.
Yeah, you didn't trade him so you could let him walk in free agency. Apparently the Patriots were prepared to offer a 2nd-round pick for Hooper. So they eventually traded that for Sanu, but just saying.
It would be an absolute, and I'm sure another team was like, I don't think the Patriots were the only team circling the Falcons for Hooper.
No.
I'm sure at least another team wanted him and would have given at least a 2nd rounder. So if you reject that and then you let Hooper go for nothing, after you play the second half of the season for no reason, that would be a terrible look on Dimitroff and Quinn. So Hooper and his agent, they have some leverage, but not more leverage than the Falcons, who have the franchise tag at their disposal.
Yeah, I believe
Plus
that he will be. Go ahead. That's good.
I was just going to say, you look around the league, and it's not a position where there's like a ton of great tight ends. So it's like if you finally have one that you can trust, what do you have, like two drops this year?
Yeah.
You hang on to him. Like Matt Ryan's last great tight end was obviously Tony Gonzalez. Like now he's got Austin Hooper, who before he got hurt had top 2, tight end stats. I think it was him and Kelsey basically neck and neck, and he probably would have made the Pro Bowl if he didn't. I know he's a Pro Bowl alternate, but if he didn't get injured and then Ertz stepped in basically,
right?
Or Kittle.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a top 5 tight end. You want to hold on to that
in his prime now. Yeah, going into his prime, like it would be colossally stupid if they let Hooper walk. Like, look, I believe that he will be franchise tagged before he walks in free agency. The franchise tag's like $11 million. That's a lot. That will really hamstring them in free agency, but he's not leaving. Like, if they let him walk after refusing a pick, it just shows that Dimitrov has no goddamn clue what he's doing anymore. Like he's just like a blind man, in a woodshed, just running into everything. And maybe something works from time to time, but that's like no, that would be so stupid on so many levels.
And we probably wouldn't even be having this conversation of whether or not we can afford to keep Hooper, and we just traded Devontae Freeman.
Oh yeah.
And the Lions wanted Freeman. I would have given him to them for a conditional 7th round pick.
It wasn't about the pick; it was about the money.
Yeah, just to get his like salary cap hit off the books.
Yeah.
So then we wouldn't have to pay that $6 million, which makes him borderline uncuttable. Not completely, but he has a $9.5 million dead cap hit. Or a $9.5 million cap hit this year.
Mm-hmm.
$6 million would be dead cap if you cut him.
Yeah.
That's been an absolute disaster of a contract looking back on it.
Yeah.
And unless you have an elite running back like Zeke Elliott or Todd Gurley before his arthritis in the knees, or Saquon Barkley or McCaffrey, or possibly even Derrick Henry now, you should not pay your running back the way we did with Devontae Freeman. He has never been an elite running back.
Yeah, draft late day 2, early day 3 guys, find someone that sticks because there's guys every year, and just keep shuffling them, let somebody else pay the running backs. So, I mean, it sucks for the running backs, and like I feel for them, but like that's in this era, that's what you have to do.
Yeah,
because they just start breaking down as soon as they sign that second contract. So.
Yeah, we gave him that contract off the emotion of coming off that Super Bowl. Like, and also I still remember his agent making like a scene right before the Super Bowl trying to get leverage, which was just ridiculous. I mean, yeah, we that was a colossal mistake, and we're still paying for it to this day. And we had a chance to get an out from it, get an out from having to pay that money. But Thomas Dimitrov and Dan Quinn still didn't take it.
Yeah.
Plus, whoever's back there is going to be wasted with Dirk anyway.
Oh yeah, yeah. Dirk can't call a run game to save his life. So
like, if they want to pay me $50,000, I'll get back there.
Yeah, right. I'll get back there and run into the line for 1 yard. I can do that.
That's what Freeman's doing for $9 million.
Yeah, I could do it for a very little percentage of that. But so other free agents that are somewhat interesting. It's a question now. I think whether or not they bring Bosher back with his injuries this year.
No, I don't think so.
Probably not.
Ryan Allen looked good.
He was good.
If you look at their stats, like their punt average is like literally identical. I can pull it up, but I think it's like 41.9 or something. Like they somehow ended up with the exact same average punt total.
Yeah.
But I mean, Ryan Allen, it's like, he's a proven vet. He was on all
the
those
Patriots
Super Bowl teams. And Bosher is getting up there, and it's like, they averaged 41.9 per punt. So it's like, and Ryan Allen, he was our kicker, our punter, and then Bosher came back, and then we bailed on him, and then Bosher obviously went back down, and then we brought him back. So, I'd be totally down for Ryan Allen coming back.
And I think Bosher, he's a free agent this year, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm seeing. He just made $2.5 million last year as a punter. And
it's pretty high for a punter.
Yeah, let's be honest. He's not exactly, I'm blanking on his name, but the punter down in Tennessee who just pinned the Patriots and the Ravens down deep for the past two games, and has been just incredible, and it's arguably the best punter in the NFL right now. But he's not exactly an elite player at his position. No to bringing Bosher back for that kind of money. And I'm also completely fine with Ryan Allen did a good job in relief. And he wasn't injured, which I know it sucks to say, because injuries happen, but if you're a player at that kind of a disposable position, you can't afford to be injured for almost the entire season off and on. Allen made $190,000 and did the exact same job that Bosher did for $2.5 million.
Yeah, so exactly. Other guys that I think are bigger deals, like Devondre Campbell's a big one. I just don't think they're going to be able to find the money to pay him. I think some teams probably going to give him like $5 million or so a year, because of how he played towards the end of the season. He's got all the measurables. He's still pretty young. I think some team will take a swing at him. Let's see. I mean, Kenyon Barner, I wouldn't mind him coming back. He did a good job. He's not going to be expensive. Tyler Davison's another guy I wouldn't mind just throwing $1 million at, because he was a very good run defender. I mean, he was solid in the middle of our line. We don't really have like a big run-stuffing nose tackle, and he can fit the bill and do a good job and be pretty cheap.
We'll draft one in the first round.
Hell yeah. No, Marvin Wilson stayed in school, so that dream died. But, there's some depth guys they're probably going to bring back. J.J. Wilcox, Steven Means, I think are guys they like. Bleedy. Keith Smith, I think, was a fine fullback. But, yeah, I mean, other than that, the big questions are probably like, does Wes Schweitzer get an actual contract somewhere else? Maybe. Younghoe Koo, I assume he's going to be back without question, for pretty reasonable. So
yeah, for Koo, he'll get. I want to do it the same way we did last year with Tavecchio. Not the same way. I don't want to guarantee him the job immediately.
Yeah.
He definitely deserves a first look in a competition, but I hope we have some sort of kicker competition this preseason and off season. Because Koo still hasn't proven that he can kick from over 50 yards out. He made one 50-yarder just barely. He does a good job with onside kicks, but I'd rather my kicker be able to kick from 50-plus as opposed to having to recover the 3 onside kicks that you'll attempt in a year max.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, and I don't want to hear any of that. Oh yeah, don't make it a competition. It'll hurt him like
no.
It'll hurt his psyche. If competition will hurt your psyche, you don't belong in the NFL.
Exactly. So, yeah. So I think but like it's funny because last year was like the first year that they didn't bring in a kicker to compete like in training camp. Like even when they had Bryant, they were still bringing in undrafted guys basically every offseason just to be a camp leg and see if they had something there. And then last year they were just like, no, it's just Tavecchio. That's fine. And then, of course, he fell flat on his face.
They brought in Blair Walsh.
Oh, God, yeah. Like, they wanted to give him confidence by, like, making him kick against Blair Walsh, which is, like, not a competition at all. But, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But, yeah, I mean, looking at the rest of these names, like, they already said no to Hagman, which is smart. I mean, there's just a lot of depth guys, so we'll see what happens there. I like Jack Crawford. I like Adrian Claiborne. I think those guys could be potential re-signings just depending on how much money they want. But, like, it really depends on Hooper because if they have to tag him and they can't work out a deal, that contract eats up, like, almost all of their cap space. So they're either going to have to be willing to cut more guys or they're going to be extremely cheap in free agency and just try to get through with young players.
And also, I want to highlight just how important it was getting a deal done with Grady Jarrett last offseason. Because that was backs against the wall, last minute type thing. Because if Grady Jarrett played under the tag last year,
oh yeah,
he'd be a free agent right now.
Yep.
And he would be like number one in terms of having to like bring him back, especially after the year he just had. So he'd
be asking for like. What, 18 to 20 million?
Yeah.
Second team All-Pro this year.
And you'd potentially have to, worst case scenario, tag him again. And the way the franchise tag works is if you do it a second straight year, or if you are a player within your top 5 earning at your position, which is what the franchise tag averages over the past year, you get a 30% raise, 30% like on top of that. So that would be an astronomical amount for a defensive tackle. I think it would be... I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but he'd earn like $18 million off the tag. So that a long-term contract also let you rework the numbers, which let you re-sign Deion Jones to a long-term contract last offseason.
Yeah.
So you could, had you not gotten that done when you did, you could potentially be looking at an offseason now where you had Grady Jarrett, Deion Jones, and Austin Hooper all as free agents, and that would have been an absolute disaster.
Yeah. So glad that they worked that out. That's why I'm confident they'll get something done with Hooper. I feel like Matt Ryan would just like riot if they let Hooper walk. Like Matt Ryan, when he has a very good tight end, that's when he's really at his best. He's made it work with like, competent but not great guys. Like Jacob Tamme, that year, like Tamme was fine, and he was functional. But like Ryan with Gonzalez, Ryan just has a really great connection with his tight ends. Like that's just one of his favorite places to throw the ball. And having a guy there that's like a real plus matchup, it gives such an extra dimension to this offense. And you got Hooper going into his prime. Like you just don't let your prime big name players like leave in free agency. Like this is what, like, look at teams like the Browns who have all this cap space and can't spend it because they don't have any good players. Nobody wants to play there. Like the cap space is there to spend. Like you need to spend it on good players. Not James Carpenter, Ty Sombrello type players. No, you don't need those players. You need to take your cap space and spend it on those elite players that every team wants. Like the fact that teams are interested in Hooper means that you need to keep him because he's worth that money. And I just like Jaden Graham could be a really good tight end, but it would be better if Jaden Graham was like only forced to be the starter in case of injury or something, instead of going into the season with Jaden Graham as your tight end one. Like that's just that's really asking a lot of Jaden Graham if you were to do that. I'd much rather have him be like, who's the Bucs tight end? For him to be the Cameron Brate to, our O.J. Howard with Austin Hooper, except we actually use him. So you just don't let players like that walk. That's not a good strategy, because finding a tight end better than Hooper in the draft, it's going to be very difficult. I mean, look at the Lions with Eric Ebron. They spent a top 10 pick on a tight end, and he ended up being pretty mediocre. So you just can't guarantee that you're going to find another good tight end. It's one of the harder positions in the NFL to evaluate.
And then last year they spent a top 10 pick on Hawkinson, and he wasn't very good last year. I mean, he was a rookie in fairness, but
rookie tight ends don't produce also. So
yeah, he had that great first game, and then after that he completely fell off, because I remember picking him up in fantasy.
Yeah, so he had that monster first game and then did literally nothing the rest of the season. So it's okay. I had Kelsey in every league. I was pretty satisfied. So, but yeah, that's a little primer on free agency. We're obviously going to talk more about it as we get closer. The Falcons are going to start making moves here, probably after the Super Bowl when the season officially ends. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for all that news. We'll have, I believe we're doing like a series right now on the Falcoholic.com going over the different groups on the roster. Adnan mentioned, the center one, which is coming out soon. So definitely check those out to get a little bit more information there, and we'll do more, like free agency cap space related stuff as we get closer to. Obviously, draft stuff is coming. Eric did our first scouting report. He did Ep97. I'm going to be doing Chase Young. That's probably going to be coming out next week. And then my first mock draft of the offseason, reflecting our final pick order, is going to be coming out tomorrow. So if you guys are itching for those draft takes, check that out tomorrow. But otherwise, guys, we really appreciate you tuning in on this lonely off-season night. Before we get out of here, though, I want to thank my co-hosts. First off, Mr. Adnan Ikic on Twitter @SayWhичWay. Adnan, you mentioned the center article. Anything else you're working on you'd like to plug?
Mostly the center article, and I'll also have a recap Monday morning of how the championship games happened this Sunday. And I mean, it's crazy with all of this news that's been happening. We just spent over an hour, talking, and we didn't even mention the championship games.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. It's championship week, so let's get some picks in.
Yeah. So we do need to do that. Yeah, I believe I took Kansas City and San Francisco in our picks.
Yes, I did the same, and I think it'll be a heck of a Super Bowl. Yeah,
that would be the Super Bowl I would be most interested in watching. Honestly, if the Titans manage to pull it off, I think they're going to be a fun opponent for anyone, because that would mean they're basically unstoppable at this point.
Yeah, they've just been like gaining power. Like Derrick Henry's like Thanos, just
Yeah.
grabbing Infinity Stones with
Yep,
each passing week.
Stephen B, no long snapper talk. Not tonight. We're gonna save that for the long snapper pod. That'll be coming up soon. But
I mean,
yeah.
Those dead days in January.
Oh yeah.
You know what will.
Yep. When we get into June, man, nothing's off limits. So.
Yeah, June. That's
Yeah, June. Literally nothing happening. All right, so let's debate. Can we improve at long snapper? But yeah. But Evan, who are you thinking this week in the?
I mean, I believe it'll be KC and San Francisco. But I picked in our staff pick'em, I picked the Titans to win, mainly because I'm trying to catch up to you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Kevin is leading everyone by like.
I'm leading you by one.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, Adnan's not far behind either. I thought I had a rough week because I went against everybody and picked the Vikings to win, and that for like the first 2 minutes I felt kind of good, and then it just kind of blew up in my face.
Yeah.
But it's like we're at that point now. You gotta take some risks here.
Yeah, if you want to catch up or whatever.
Well above. Yeah, because right now Adnan's got 166 correct. Kevin, you have 169, so we're going to need you to like screw up the next few weeks.
Yeah. What are you at, Evan? You were one behind me, I think, last week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm at 166 with Adnan now. We might have to throw Pro Bowl picks in there just to give us a chance.
Because if I'm up by 3, that means that you would have to pick the upset like every time and win. So it's possible.
A comfortable lead.
Yeah.
I remember I was one game back going into the playoffs, but what screwed me was I should have picked with my heart and picked against the Saints on the wild.
I should have too. Yeah, I should have too.
Yeah, so I actually picked the Saints to win Wild Card Weekend. I thought they'd get knocked out by the Packers in the divisional round in Green Bay, but. Yeah, so that kind of screwed me a little bit. And I also picked the Patriots to beat the Titans. So that was another like upset where me picking chalk ended up.
I think everyone did, but James and Corey.
Yeah, no.
James always picks like the underdog. That's why he's like, I think by far last place.
Oh yeah. Poor James. He's a good sport. But
yeah, he's picked the Falcons in every single week this year.
He's a true fan. Yeah. True fan.
That's the weird thing when. We all picked the Falcons to win, like everyone did. We usually lost, I believe, but maybe one game. So
every time I picked them to like lose, which was like after week 8 or whatever, they just won. So then I started picking them to win in random weeks, and they would lose. So I was like, all right, I just have to pick against them every week. That's just what has to happen.
My finest moment was easily picking us correctly against the Saints in New Orleans. I think it was only me, Dave, and James who picked the Falcons because we were an absolute train wreck.
Yeah.
And I remember my only reasoning for that wasn't anything logical. It was literally just I will never pick the Falcons to lose against the Saints.
Yeah, that's a smart call. That's a smart call right there.
But when we were all coming off of that Saints and Panthers win, everyone went all in on them against the Buccaneers, obviously, and that's what one off the top of my head I can remember.
The Colts won for sure. I think the Titans also.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were not the juggernaut Titans then. They were like the Titans when we played them that week.
They were so bad.
Yeah,
Mariota put up 3 touchdowns on us.
Oh yeah, we single-handedly bought him like 2 more weeks of starting. Yeah.
And I remember the game before that, the Titans got absolutely train wrecked against the Jaguars on Thursday Night Football. Mm-hmm. They gave up 10 sacks, and then when we faced them, they had Mariota. I mean, we contained Henry fine. He had 27 carries for 100 yards. But Mariota toasted us, and Taylor Lewan didn't even play in that game. He was still suspended. And we still got wrecked at home by the Titans. Like, even though the Titans are, like, good now, that was still maybe one of the 2 or 3 worst losses of the season easily. Like,
Texans, is way up there, but, like, number 1 worst.
But even that's like, all right, you're going to Houston. I didn't think we'd win. I didn't think we'd get embarrassed like that. I didn't think we'd win. The Titans one was just unacceptable.
Yeah. No, the Houston game was like the worst defensive performance in modern history for the Falcons. So that was, I don't think that one can be topped. But
That was that Will Fuller game.
Yep. He had like
exploded
200
for
something
20
yards or something. It's so stupid.
Yeah,
But-
and he was just like all alone every time, just
Yep.
single cover the entire game, no matter
Man.
what. It was always that soft zone and always only one player in Fuller's vicinity.
Yeah, never let Dan Quinn call the plays again. That man, I don't know what happened, but
Yeah,
it was a nightmare.
I was thinking before the season, saying, "Oh yeah, we'll be so good with Dan Quinn calling plays."
Yeah, that one
Like,
time he took it over, it was good, you know.
Yeah,
so.
in 2016, the second half, it was beautiful, and I thought that would be our best biggest improvement this year. But boy, was I wrong about that.
Yeah. Yep. So, yeah, dark times indeed. We're signing up for Take Two, in 2020. So stay tuned for that, folks. But at least we have Raheem Morris now. Yeah, at least we have Raheem Morris. Maybe he'll save us.
2019 was Take Two, if we're being
yes,
honest.
you're right.
So,
it was. Yeah.
So we're signing up for Take 3.
Yes. Hey, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 3 or more times, shame on me.
Yeah, I can see it now. It's 2026. The Falcons
Dan Quinn
have
is still the head
7-9
coach.
for the past 8 seasons.
But they always rebound and play really well in the second half. So Arthur Blank's like, oh man, they finished strong. Next year.
This is the year.
Yep, this is the year.
This is the year. They're coming back for that Super Bowl.
Yeah. All right. We're doing Arthur Blank accents. It's time to wrap up the show here. So we got to save that for June. We got to save the Arthur Blank impersonations for June.
Yeah. Well, we're giving away our golden material.
Yeah. No. This is deep cut stuff here. So all you guys that managed to stay on the stream for this long, we appreciate you. But wait, I think I asked Adnan if you had anything to plug. Evan, did you have anything you wanted to plug?
Yeah. Actually, tomorrow. We didn't talk about it, but Tommy Nobis got snubbed yet again from being in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And there was a couple other people who Drew Pearson probably deserved it. But I actually got the opportunity to speak with Claude Humphrey, who's in the Hall of Fame, who played for the Falcons for many years and played with Tommy Nobis. So I got to interview him and ask him questions about, Tommy Nobis as a teammate and stuff like that, and he shared some thoughts on being in the Hall of Fame. But that will be, I think, at 8 a.m. tomorrow or something. So if you're a morning person or you wake up in the afternoon, look on the Falcoholic. It's pretty good read.
Yeah, definitely check that out, guys. I feel bad for Nobis. He really did deserve it, big time. So
I was crushed, honestly. I thought I never got to watch him play in person, obviously, because I was born in 1990. But it's one of those things where it's not even a Tommy Nobis thing anymore. It's like, what did the Falcons do to you? Mike Ken's been trying to get him forever, and it's like, I really believe if those kind of players, Jesse Tuggle even, if they had a star or a Packers G or Bears C on their helmet, they would have been in a long time ago. But because they have, they had the old Falcons logo, that's why, there's a heavy bias there, because you see guys get in all the time who, Tommy Nobis was on some terrible teams, but you can't ignore what he did, and he was on the I believe the 1960s all-decade team, NFL all-decade team, and you had some, I think all the linebackers but him, maybe one other linebacker, are in the Hall of Fame. It's just kind of like, okay, he's obviously passed away, so it's like everybody's going to have to fight for him, but what more do they need to see? I mean, there's a lot of players in there, and Claude Humphrey even addressed it. He mentioned, I think it was Ray Nitschke and Dick Butkus. He was making the comparison, saying, because he competed against these guys, obviously not on offense, but he saw them play, and he said, there's not a whole lot of difference in terms of talent. They were on much better teams, obviously, but there's not a whole different in talent level between all three of them. So, yeah, definitely read that. It sucks, but it is what it is. Maybe next year.
Yeah, maybe next year. That would be nice.
That's the Falcons' motto right
there.
Yeah.
He fits right in, unfortunately.
For life, apparently.
All right, guys. Well, we went kind of long this week. We had a lot to talk about, but we appreciate all you guys for hanging out. We'll be back in the 2 weeks, so that'll be, I guess, February by then, maybe. But well, no, it'll still be January. It'll be January 29th. See, still January. But we'll get into more stuff. We'll get into more draft takes. I should have some scouting reports by then to share. And we'll break it down. We'll see if the Falcons make any moves here. Probably the moves won't come until after the Super Bowl, but we'll see. And we'll go from there. We appreciate you guys for hanging out. Like I said, 2 weeks from now we'll be back. Until then, guys, enjoy championship weekend. Should be some good games, and we will see you next time. I'm Kevin Knight on Twitter at Falcoholic Kevin. Like I said, my mock draft is coming out tomorrow. We've got Adnan Ikic at Say Which Way and Evan Birchfield at Evan Birchfield. Thanking you for tuning in tonight. We will see you guys next time on the Falcoholic Live. Have a great night, folks.